Bruh. 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 You guys. Holy shit. I was talking for 5 minutes and I didn't even know I was muted. Did you like the story? It was a really good story. I'm not going to tell it again. That's it. Holy moly. I should have been looking at the chat because like everyone is saying you're muted, you're muted, you're muted. We can't hear you, we can't hear you, you're muted. Holy shit. Okay, I should check chat more often. Why did I have myself muted? There's a reason. There's a reason, and if you had heard my story before, that you would have known. But now there's no way for you to know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That was embarrassing. Okay. All right. Let's start over. Rewind. So, as I was saying, guess what? Guess what I'm streaming on right now? It's my brand new computer, baby. That's right. This is a whole new computer. So apparently I didn't have things set up. So you guys couldn't even hear me. Shit. That sucked. It should be good now, though. Okay, so yeah, I have a brand new computer. Funny story that I'm gonna retell. So, I wanted to build my own. I wanted to build a new computer, right? Because my old one was super old and ancient. So, I wanted to buy a new computer, and the problem is that these freaking Bitcoin miners have made it so that you can't buy a new graphics card anywhere. Like anywhere, go ahead and go online and try to buy a graphics card. They're like $1,500. They're super expensive. So I was waiting for a while until like the price goes down to buy one, but like I was waiting too long. So I was like, nope, can't do that. So there is a way to get a new graphics card, right? And that is if you buy a pre-built computer, you can add it onto it, right? So it comes with a new graphics card. So that is one way. That is a way to get a graphics card for relatively cheap, right? You don't have to pay astronomical prices. So that's what I did. I bought a brand new computer. It's all pre-built, right? And it came in on Wednesday. Let me check. Let me check the chat to see if you guys can hear me. All right. Yeah. So funny thing. So it came on Thursday, I believe. So new computer. I was super excited, right? So I was like, oh, I turned off my computer. I unplugged my old stuff, all the cables from my old computer, and I was plugging in the cables for the new computer, and I find out that holy shit, my monitors are way too old, right? They're ancient, so the cords don't match, like the cables don't match. I was like, shit. So I had to go buy an adapter. So it was pretty late in the day, so I was checking to see like if any stores are open. Luckily, Best Buy's was open, Target was open for like 2 more hours. So I ran into Best Buy's and I tried to look and try to find the cables. They didn't have it, right? I was like, shit. So I ran to Target and I tried to find the cables and they didn't have it. And I was super sad. And then I ran home and with a tear in my eye, I ordered some cables online. And then they came. Yeah, they would come in 2 days. So yeah, so like I had to re-plug in all the stuff on my old computer and use it for a couple of days before the cables come. So yeah, for a couple of days, the brand new computer was just sitting there. Just sitting there. Very sad. But finally it came and I set up everything. So I actually I've been setting up this whole day. So luckily all of this stuff is still working. Yeah, so we good. What do you want to name the new computer? Da, 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 da. Okay, what do you want to name it? Right now it's called Streamer. What do you guys want to name it? We can just change the name on my computer. I don't know if I can show you this my settings screen. I don't know if it reveals any information about me, but yeah, I think when you yeah, tell me what to rename. I'll rename it. I don't care. What has become of the old computer? The old computer, I will take it apart and sell the parts. So it has a lot of it's like I think it's 10 years old, so it has pretty old parts. But I can still sell those things. So I can still sell all the graphics card, the power supply, and all that shit. So hopefully I make back some money. Name it Nokia. Why Nokia? What? Isn't that an old phone? Oh, grass cutter. Grass cutter is good. That's the Tsunagi, right? Why Nokia? I don't know what Nokia means. Why is everyone saying Nokia? Name it Tim. The Lin PU. I'm liking grass cutter, actually. Okay, I'm not doing Nokia. I'm sure it's some meme somewhere that I don't get. I can't trust you online, people. What is Nokia? Someone explain it. I don't understand. Alright, I'll name it grass cutter. I think that's the best one I've seen so far. Yeah, I know it's a cell phone. Anyways. Oh, is the sound okay? I made sure to set it up the exact same way as before. So hopefully it's good. Name the new computer OnlyFans. That's funny. Poor OnlyFans. They had to ban, what did they ban? They banned sexually explicit content on their platform. Oh no. Well, it looks like OnlyFans is going bankrupt in about 2 months. Yeah. Yeah, I was surprised. Like they make a lot of money off of that. Why did they ban like that kind of content? But then there was a news article that came out that I was like, it looks like it wasn't their fault. Like it wasn't really their decision. It was pressure from the payment processors, like the credit card companies. They didn't want that kind of content, so I think their hands were forced. So what is my real name? My real name is Lin. Linh. Lin. What's my last name? I don't know. I don't know if I should tell you. That's a little too much information. Gotta sing a song to test the audio? Well, you can hear my audio fine. Okay. So someone told me something today that seems strange. Okay. That surprised me. Okay. Are you ready? It's very interesting. So you guys, you can touch your hands behind your back, right? right? So when you do this, you can touch your left hand with your right hand. I don't know if you guys can see. Right? That's easy, right? Okay. So someone told me that they can do that, but they can't do that with their other hand. So I can do that like this, but I can't do that the other way. Wait, can you guys try? Is there something wrong with me? Like, I can't do it the other way. And I don't understand. How come I can do it one way but not the other way? You know what I mean? Like, they reach the same. It's the same reach. It doesn't make any sense. Look. Why can't I reach? Like, can you guys do both sides? It's strange too because my right hand is my dominant hand, and it seems like this hand is the inflexible one. Like this hand, so my left hand, it can go up pretty far, right? It can go up pretty far. But then this one, it can't go up that far at all. It's so weird. Guys with muscles can't. Oh, maybe my right hand is like it has way too much muscles. It has way too. It's way too ripped. So I can't bend it as far. Yeah, that's the explanation I'm gonna go with. One sided. Can you guys do both sides, or is it just me? You could do it, but since your shoulder injury, you can't do it anymore. So you could do it both sides. It doesn't make any sense. Like, can I pull it up? Okay, watch. Can I... Okay. I'm not gonna injure myself on stream. Should have asked you 20 years ago. Okay. You can do both. Fuck. Okay. Maybe I just need to exercise more or stretch more. I think my left arm is less flexible than my right. No. My right arm is less flexible than my left arm. It's so weird how it's one-sided like that. Okay, it looks like everyone can do it both sides, except for me. Alright. Oh, I have food. Alright, before we start, I got this. This looks pretty good, huh? It's like chocolate and matcha cookies. So this looks amazing. I can't wait. And it has this fancy opening too. Ooh, fancy. Ooh, it's chocolate. Oh, okay, smaller than I expected. Mmm. Tastes like matcha and chocolate. Really soft too. Oh, it's pretty good. It's like not too sweet, so it's really good. Yeah, I like things a little bit sweet, but not too sweet. Okay. Ooh. Hey, Abby. Thanks for the super chat. I really appreciate it. I'm giving that a 7 out of 10. It's like not too sweet, so which is a good thing. It has some matcha flavor and chocolate flavor. It's kind of melty. It's pretty hot here, so it's a little bit melted. I wish they can make chocolate that doesn't melt, but yeah, not bad. Chew closer to the mic. All right, let's try it. Let's test out my new mic or my new mic setup on my new computer. Can you hear me chew the cookies? Oh, you can't. You can't. I'm sorry. Oh, shoot. Hold on. All right. Enough of that. Enough of that shit. Let's talk about what happened last week in our story. So last week, so Ling Hu Chong, our hero, and the Hangshan school, they were hanging out. They were just hanging out, and then Yu Changhai came because he was meeting with Lin Pingzhi, right? So apparently they agreed to meet at where these people were staying, and so remember, Yu Changhai was the guy who attacked Lin Pingzhi's family a long time ago, and started his whole like it caused all of his problems, right? So Lin Pingzhi comes, and then they fight, right? He fights with Yu Changhai, and he beats Yu Changhai in one move. So he's super powerful now. So and then so Ling Hu Chong sees this, and also Ying Ying sees this, and it looks like the martial arts that he was using looked like the Sunflower Manual, right? It looks like what Yue Buchun was using when he defeated Zuo Langshan. So, and over the course of the last chapter, Lin Pingzhi, he follows Yu Changhai, killing his disciples one by one, right? A few at a time, and then running off. So he would follow him, kill someone, and then run off. And he would keep doing this. He's dragging out his revenge. So Ling Hu Chong and company, they're following Yu Changhai because they want to see Lin Pingzhi's martial arts. They want to study it, but they promise not to interfere with anything, right? So and then in one battle, Lin Pingzhi was torturing Yu Changhai, but he was ignoring his wife, Yue Lingshan, in the process, who was being attacked by other students of Yu Changhai's, and she was in danger. So Ying Ying saves her life, and Lin Pingzhi. So it seems like Lin Pingzhi only cares about his revenge, and he cares nothing for his wife. So she runs away on her horse. She's super sad. And then in one more meeting, this guy Mu Gaofeng comes. Well, he appears, and he appears carrying Yue Lingshan, right? So she's tied up as his prisoner. If you remember, Mu Gaofeng was the guy who had killed Lin Pingzhi's parents. So Lin Pingzhi recognizes him, And he mentions to Yu Shanghai that that Yu Shanghai has just seen the evil resisting sword art. So this piques Mu Gaofeng's interests. And that's where we left off. There you go. What am I drinking? Just water. Doom, 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 doom. Alright. Okay, let's get started. Wait, Mu Gaofeng didn't kill his parents? No, I think he did kill his parents, didn't he? Mu Gaofeng killed Lin Pingzhi's parents. Like I guess he's tortured them and then they died afterwards, but that's basically the same as killing. And original water, yes, it's water from my tap. What do you want? Well, not straight from my tap. I have a filter. There's water from that. All right, let's do this. Chapter 35, Vengeance, Part 2 of 3. Not fake, Yu Changhai answered. I saw it from head to tail, every move and every stance. I saw all of them already. So he's talking about the evil resisting sword art, right? Mu Gaofeng was surprised and happy. He jumped down from his horse and sat at Yu Changhai's table. So this guy's voice is really high, I think. I heard this sword manual was taken by Yue Bu Chun. How did you see it? I didn't see the sword manual. I only saw a person using this sword art. Oh, is that so? There's real evil resisting sword art, and there's fake evil resisting sword art. Fuzhou's fortune prestige escort house's descendants learn the useless type of evil resisting sword art. When people see them use it, their teeth will fall off from laughing too much. Is the one you saw real? I also don't know whether it's real or fake, but the person who used this set of sword art was a descendant of the Fortune Prestige escort house. Mu Gaofeng laughed loudly. You're the leader of a school, but you don't know whether the sword art is real or fake. Didn't Lin Jinan from the Fortune Prestige escort house die under your hand? Oh, maybe you're right. Maybe Yu Changhai did kill them. Whether the evil resisting sword art is real or fake, I can't tell. Hero Mu is brilliant and have a lot of experience. You'll definitely figure it out, Yu Changhai replied. Mu Gaofeng knew this short priest was experienced in martial art and that he was also a first-class figure in Wulin. For him to suddenly say such a thing, there must definitely be a deeper meaning to it. Mu Gaofeng giggled and swept his eyes across. He saw everyone was looking at him strangely, like he had said something really wrong. If I have a look at it, I'll definitely be able to distinguish it. If Hero Mu wants to have a good look, there's someone here who can use that sword art, Yu Changhai replied. Mu Gaofeng's heart shivered as if it was suddenly cold. He swept his eyes across again to look at each person. He saw Lin Pingzhi's expression was most uncaring, so he asked, Is this the youngster who can use it? Admirable, admirable. Hero Mu really has good eyesight. Just one look and you're able to figure it out, Yu Changhai said. Mu Gaofeng observed Lin Pingzhi from head to toe and saw his gown was gorgeous, like he was a young master from a wealthy family. He thought, The way Shorty Yu said that, there must be a plot against me. The enemy has a lot of people. A good man doesn't want to be disadvantaged, so there's no need to bother with them. I'll just go with my plan. Since Yuebu Chun's daughter is in my hand, I don't have to fear him not coming to exchange the sword manual for her. So he laughed loudly and said, "Ha ha ha ha, Shorty Yu, I haven't seen you for a long time, but you still love to joke around. I have some matters to do today, so forgive me for not accompanying you. Evil resisting sword art is good. Killing demons sword art is also good, but I don't care about it, so goodbye." As soon as Mu Gaofeng finished saying these words, his body shot out and landed on his horse's back. His body was very nimble. At the same instant, people there felt there was a blur in front of their eyes, looking like Lin Pingzhi had jumped out and hindered Mu Gaofeng's horse's path. But then they saw he was still lightly fanning himself, sitting at his table looking like he had never left it at all. Everyone was greatly astonished, but Mu Gaofeng shouted and urged his horse to go. Masters like Ling Huchong, Ying Ying, and Yu Changhai saw clearly how Lin Pingzhi had extended his hand to stab twice and done something to the horse. Sure enough, after a few steps, Mu Gaofeng's horse suddenly ran into a pillar of the grass shed. Okay, there's a lot of horse abuse in this story, and I don't care for it. The force with which the horse ran into the pillar was enormous, and it brought half of the grass shed down. Yu Changhai leapt outside of the shed, while the grass and hay fell on top of Ling Huchong, Lin Pingzhi, and other people's heads. The grass and hay fell on top of Ling Huchong, Lin Pingzhi, and other people's heads. Zhang Yu extended her hand to remove the grass on Ling Huchong's head, but Lin Pingzhi just kept on staring at Mu Gaofeng and was oblivious to anything else. Mu Gaofeng hesitated, dismounted the horse, and released the rein. That horse rushed forward and a few steps ran into a big tree. With a long neigh, it fell down to the ground with a bloody head. This horse's movement was really strange, and it became obvious both of his eyes were blinded because Lin Pingzhi had stabbed them with his unbelievably quick hand technique. Lin Pingzhi used his fan to slowly wipe away the grass on his left shoulder. "A blind person riding a blind horse, that's very dangerous, you know." Mu Gaofeng laughed loudly. "You little kid really are arrogant. You must have real skill. Shorty Yu said you know how to use the evil-resisting sword art. There's no harm in letting Grandpa have a look." "All right, I'm going to give you a look. You killed both my parents and sinned deeply just because you wanted to have a look at my family's evil-resisting sword art. You're just like Yu Changhai," Lin Pingzhi replied. Mu Gaofeng was stunned. He never expected this little master was Lin Zhinan's son. He secretly thought, "You have the nerve to openly challenge me here, so you must be feeling secure. His 5 mountain sword schools have become one. These Hengshan schools' nuns must all be his helpers." At this thought, he turned his hand around to grab Yue Lingshan and thought, "The enemy is many and I'm alone. This little girl is his wife. Once I have her under my hand, what can this little kid do?" Suddenly, he heard the sound of the wind whistling behind him as a sword was hacked down upon him. Mu Gaofeng slanted his body to dodge it and saw Yue Lingshan was the one wielding the sword. Ying Ying had actually cut off the ropes tying Yue Lingshan's hands, opened up her sealed acupoints, and had also placed a long sword in her hand. After her attack was evaded, Yue Lingshan felt her injury flaring up again. Also, her acupoints had been sealed for a long time already, so her limbs were aching. So even though she felt really angry, she didn't chase after him. Lin Pingzhi laughed derisively. "Ha ha ha! Your reputation in Wulin is already well known for many years already. But you're actually so shameless. If you still want your life, crawl on the ground and give Grandpa 3 kowtows while calling me Grandpa 3 times. Then I'll let you live for 1 year. After 1 year, I'll come and look for you again. Mu Gaofeng threw his head back and laughed out loud. A lot of laughing. Ha 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 ha! Little kid, that day in Hangshan at Liu Zhengfang's house, you disguised yourself as a little hunchback and kowtowed to me and called me Grandpa. You even staked your life to become my disciple. Grandpa wasn't willing, so you joined old Yue's school and swindled yourself a wife. Isn't this right? Lin Pingzhi didn't answer. His eyes were filled with fires of anger, but his face was filled with excitement. He snapped his fan closed and put it on his left hand, while his right hand lifted up his gown as he stepped out of the grass shed to walk towards Mu Gaofeng. The breeze blew past and carried a sweet fragrance to everyone's nose. My female voice reminds you of Jim Gaffigan's annoyed woman voice. That's funny because none of these people were females. This guy just has a really high voice. You hope someone put that poor horse out of its misery? I don't know. It was just blinded, so it must be like just running around. Unfortunately. Suddenly, two cries were heard. The faces of Qingcheng School's Yu Ren Hao and Ji Ren Tong changed color, and blood was gushing out of their chests as they fell down. The people besides them couldn't help calling out in fright. They saw clearly Lin Pingzhi was going forward to deal with Mu Gaofeng, but without knowing how, he unexpectedly drew his sword and killed those two people. After he killed them, he had promptly put his sword back into its sheath. Besides Ling Huchong and a few other masters there, the other people only felt a flicker of cold light. They didn't see clearly how he drew his sword out, let alone how he used the sword to kill those two people. So I think his main advantage here is his speed, right? He's just super fast now for some reason. What's up, Jen Pepper? Thanks for the super chat. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it. I'm just in touch with my feminine side. Yes. Very in touch. A thought flashed in Ling Huchong's mind. When I first met with Tian Bo Guang, it was also hard for me to fight against him. But after I've learned the Dugu 9 swords, his fast knife was no longer fast enough in my eyes. But I'm afraid Tian Bo Guang wouldn't even be able to take 3 moves from Lin Pingzhi's fast sword. And me? How many moves would I be able to take? All of a sudden, his palms were all sweaty. Mu Gaofeng pulled out a sword from his waist. This sword of his was really strange, as it was shaped in an arch. A hunchback using a sword which also had a hunchback. So the sword was called a hunchback sword. Lin Pingzhi sneered and walked up to him step by step. Mu Gaofeng suddenly howled like a wolf, and his body rushed forward with his hunchback sword slashing an arc at Lin Pingzhi's lower body. Lin Pingzhi's long sword left its scabbard and was thrust towards Mu Gaofeng's chest. The sword move was executed later, but it arrived first and was also very fierce and accurate. Mu Gaofeng let out a roar and his body shot back out, but there was already a big rip on the chest of his cotton-padded jacket, exposing his hairy black chest. Lin Pingzhi's sword only had to go 2 inches further forward to have cut Mu Gaofeng's chest open. The crowd cried out in astonishment. Even though Mu Gaofeng had just escaped from his death, he was very fierce and unexpectedly didn't show any fear at all as he roared and charged towards Lin Pingzhi again. Lin Pingzhi stabbed out twice with his sword. With 2 tang tang sounds, he had blocked the hunchback sword twice. Lin Pingzhi laughed mockingly as his sword was getting faster and faster. Mu Gaofeng slashed high and low. The light from his hunchback sword was making up a wall of steel around his body. When Lin Pingzhi thrust out his long sword and clashed against the hunchback sword, his arm felt a burst of numbing pain. It was obvious Mu Gaofeng's internal energy was much stronger compared to his, and if he weren't careful, his longsword would be shaken out of his hand. After this, he didn't dare to attack head-on anymore, and he observed for a crack in Mu Gaofeng's defense before he would quickly attack that point with his sword. Mu Gaofeng didn't care about what his enemy was doing and was concentrating fully on revolving his hunchback sword around his body so that not even wind nor rain could penetrate, and it didn't unexpectedly show any crack at all. Even though Lin Pingzhi's sword art was high, he didn't know what to do. But with this kind of fighting, Lin Pingzhi was in an invincible position. Even if he couldn't harm his opponent, there was no leeway at all for Mu Gaofeng to make a mistake. Every master there saw that if Mu Gaofeng wanted to attack, then his sword net would reveal a weakness, and Lin Pingzhi's quick sword would attack immediately at Mu Gaofeng, and Mu Gaofeng would find it impossible to block. This kind of defending oneself with a flying sword was really taxing on the user's internal energy. Each move had to be done with all your power, and only then would the movements be like unceasing flowing water, covering your front and back continuously. But no matter how deep your internal energy was, you still couldn't use it forever. Within the sword net weaved by that hunchback sword, Mu Gaofeng kept on roaring. He slashed high and low with his earth-shattering roars, accompanying each sword move. Lin Pingzhi had attacked a few times, thinking he was going to get through the sword net, but every time it was blocked by the hunchback sword. Yu Changhai observed this for a long time when he suddenly saw the circle of the sword net had decreased by around half a foot. It was apparent Mu Gaofeng was gradually exhausting his internal energy. With a howl, Yu Changhai lifted his sword forward and slashed out 3 times at Lin Pingzhi's back. Lin Pingzhi turned his sword around to block. Mu Gaofeng's hunchback sword sliced out at Lin Pingzhi's lower body. Normally, Yu Changhai and Mu Gaofeng would have lost a lot of face in joining forces to attack a youth, as they were both reputable seniors. But Hangshan School's people had all seen how violent and cruel Lin Pingzhi was in killing the Qingcheng disciples, and they had also seen how Yu Changhai wasn't his match. So, at this time, when they saw the 2 masters joining forces, they all felt there was nothing strange about that, but instead thought that it was the natural thing to do. If the 2 of them didn't join hands, how could they fight back against Lin Pingzhi's lightning-fast swordplay? With Yu Changhai's help, Mu Gaofeng's swordplay had changed, and he was now attacking as well as defending. The 3 of them had fought for more than 20 moves when Lin Pingzhi's left hand circled around and turned his fan's handle around to point it towards the ground. A half-inch needle shot out from his fan's handle and pierced Mu Gaofeng's right legs. His right legs is Huan Tiao acupoint. Okay, so this guy can use needle moves too. Alarmed, Mu Gaofeng quickly brandished his hunchback sword, but he suddenly felt the acupoint on his left leg was also numb. He didn't dare to move anymore and wildly brandished his hunchback sword to protect his body. Both of his legs were gradually losing strength, and finally he couldn't help but to fall on his knees. Lin Pingzhi laughed. "Ha ha ha! It's too late for you to kowtow now." Saying this, he attacked Yu Changhai with 3 moves. Even though Mu Gaofeng was kneeling on the ground, the hunchback sword in his hand didn't slow down at all, as it quickly slashed and thrust. When he knew he had lost, he knew he had lost, so there was a sense of desperation in his fighting as he was trying to bring common ruin to his enemy. In the beginning, all his movements were defensive, and there wasn't a single attacking move at all. But at this time, he was sacrificing his life, and he had changed his swordplay into full attack mode without any defense at all. Yu Changhai knew he didn't have much time. If he couldn't win within a few moves and Mu Gaofeng fell, then he would be all by himself. So his sword was now moving like a violent storm. He suddenly heard Lin Pingzhi laughing long and loud, and his vision darkened, making him unable to see anything any longer. Both sides of his shoulders then felt cool as both of his arms flew off from his body. Hey, Lady Koi, welcome. Glad you could join. Lin Pingjie was laughing madly and calling out, "Ha ha ha! I'm not going to kill you. I'm going to let you run around Jianghu with no arms and no eyes. Your disciples, families, I'll kill them all and spare no one. You're going to have enemies in this world, and you're only going to have enemies in this world and no family." Damn, he's really taking this revenge thing seriously. Yu Changhai only felt unbearable pain near where his arms were, but he understood in his heart, what he has done to me is 10,000 times more merciless than killing me with his sword. Even though I still live, I don't have any martial arts at all, and he can just humiliate me as he wants. Using Lin Pingjie's voice to locate him, he lifted his head to rush at Lin Pingjie's chest. Lin Pingjie laughed heartily and leaned his body to dodge. Now that his hatred had been avenged, he was lost in ecstasy and wasn't being cautious. He retreated for a couple of steps and arrived beside Mu Gaofeng. Mu Gaofeng swiped his hunchback sword, but Lin Pingjie blocked it with his sword. Mu Gaofeng suddenly lunged at him and hugged both of his legs firmly. Lin Pingjie was startled, and then he saw dozens of Qincheng disciples rushing at him from all directions. He struggled to free both of his legs, but he couldn't get them free from Mu Gaofeng's iron grip. He quickly stabbed his sword at Mu Gaofeng's hunchback. As the sword pierced the hunchback, a jet stream of black, smelly water shot out. Lin Pingjie moved his legs to jump out of the way, but he forgot that both of them were being firmly hugged by Mu Gaofeng, so his entire face was sprayed by the smelly water, and he cried out in pain. This smelly water was actually poison. Inside Mu Gaofeng's hunchback was a sack of leather, concealing his poison water. Covering his face with his left hand, and with both of his eyes closed, Lin Pingjie randomly slashed and chopped at Mu Gaofeng's body with his right hand. Lin Pingjie's attacks were done swiftly, but Mu Gaofeng didn't try to avoid them, as he continued to hold on to Lin Pingjie's legs firmly. So that was a good ass paragraph. So do you guys see what happened? Yeah, so he cut off both the arms of Yu Changhai and he blinded him. So now Yu Changhai is just like a dude with no arms and blind. So too bad for him. And then he slashed, or he stabbed at Mu Gaofeng's hunchback, but in the hunchback was a sack of poisoned water that sprayed at Lin Pingjie's face, right? So now it's probably acid or something. It's probably acid. So his face was he's super in pain. At this time, Yu Changhai had distinguished the cries of those people and rushed to them with his mouth wide open. He managed to find Lin Pingjie's right cheek and clamped down tightly on it. The three of them were entangled into one group, and they were losing their minds. Qincheng school disciples were using their swords to randomly chop at Lin Pingjie's body. Ling Huchong saw all these clearly from his carriage. In the beginning, he was startled. But when he saw Lin Pingjie being surrounded by the Qincheng disciples chopping with their swords, he hastily called out, Ying Ying, quickly, help him! Ying shot out with the short sword in her hand. Tang, tang, tang! The sounds of weapons clashing rang continuously, and the disciples of Qincheng were kept at several steps away from the entangled mess of Lin Pingjie, Mu Gaofeng, and Yu Changhai. Mu Gaofeng's crazed roaring gradually died off as Lin Pingjie's sword penetrated the back of his body again and again. Yu Changhai's whole body was bloody, and he was still biting down firmly on Lin Pingjie's cheek. After some time, Lin Pingjie gathered some strength in his left hand and pushed Yu Changhai away powerfully. At the same time, he cried out miserably as a chunk of flesh was torn off by Yu Changhai, and blood dripped down fiercely from his right cheek. Mu Gaofeng had already died some time ago, but he was still holding on to both of Lin Pingjie's legs. Lin Pingjie used his left hand to feel around to trace where Mu Gaofeng's arms were. Then he raised his sword and chopped off the arms to free himself. Ying saw the terrifying look on Lin Pingjie's face, and she couldn't help backing away from him. Qincheng disciples crowded around their master to help him, and they didn't pay any more attention to their strong arch enemy. Qincheng disciples then suddenly wept. Master, Master, Master's dead! Master's dead! They lifted Yu Canghai's corpse and ran to a place somewhere further away, afraid that Lin Pingzhi would chase them and kill them. Lin Pingzhi laughed loudly and called out, "Ha ha ha ha! I've taken my revenge! I've taken my revenge!" After seeing such a after seeing such a soul-stirring incident, the Hengshan school disciples were startled and lost all colors from their faces. Yue Lingshan slowly walked towards Lin Pingzhi and stopped beside him. "Brother Ping, congratulations on your revenge." Lin Pingzhi was still laughing madly and crying out, "I've taken my revenge! I've taken my revenge!" Yue Lingshan saw him with his eyes closed tightly, so she asked, What's wrong with your eyes? Let's wash the poison first." Lin Pingzhi was stupefied, and his body swayed like he was about to fall. Yue Lingshan put her hand under his armpit to help him walk onto the grass shed. Then she poured a tray of clean water on his head. Lin Pingzhi cried out miserably, showing his unbearable pain. The Qincheng disciples, standing at a faraway place, were startled, and they again ran for a few more steps. "Little Martial's sister, take these medicines and give them to Martial Brother Lin. Bring him into our carriage for him to rest," Ling Huchong said. Many thanks," Yue Lingshan stammered. "No!" Lin Pingzhi cried out. "What's so good about being betrayed by him? Whether I'm alive or dead, what does that have to do with him?" Ling Huchong was startled, and he thought, "When did I offend you? Why do you hate me?" "Hengshan School's wonderful medicines are well known in the world. It's hard to come by," Yue Lingshan softly said. "Hard to come by what?" Lin Pingzhi angrily retorted. Yue Lingshan let out a long sigh and poured another tray of clean water on his head. This time, Lin Pingzhi only snorted and gritted his teeth to stop crying out. "He's so worried about you. You've always talked well about him. Why don't you go with him? Why do you still care about me?" When the Hengshan school disciples heard this, their faces lost their colors. Yihe loudly shouted, You dare to say such shameless words?" Yi Qing quickly pulled on Yihe's sleeve. "Martial's sister, with his injuries, his mood isn't good. Why must you argue with him?" "Peh!" Yihe angrily replied. "I'm just angry." At this time, Yue Lingshan had taken out a handkerchief and was wiping the wound on Lin Pingzhi's cheek. Lin Pingzhi suddenly pushed out forcefully with his right hand. Yue Lingshan wasn't prepared for this, so she was thrown outside and hit a stone wall outside the grass shed. Ling Huchang was greatly angered and he shouted, "Phew!" But he remembered the two of them were husband and wife. When husband and wife disagreed on something and fought, it was inappropriate for other people to intervene. Furthermore, from what Lin Pingzhi had just said, it was obvious there was a bit of jealousy towards him. Lin Pingzhi definitely knew about the way he intensely loved his martial sister. Also, his own injury was serious, so Ling Huchang couldn't possibly get involved in this matter, so he quickly stopped from saying anything more, but the anger in him caused his entire body to tremble. Lin Pingzhi laughed coldly. "I'm shameless in what I said? Who are actually the shameless ones?" He pointed outside the grass shed and said, "That shorty you, Hunchback Moo. They were the ones who wanted my Lin family's evil-resisting sword art. They wanted to steal it and killed my father and mother for it. Even though they were ruthless and merciless, they were still gentlemen enough to follow the rules of a scoundrel in Jianghu. Unlike... He then turned around and pointed to Yue Lingshan and continued, "Unlike your father, Gentleman Sword Yue Buchun, who used such a contemptible and sly method to obtain my family's sword manual." Yue Lingshan supported herself on the wall as she slowly stood up. But when she heard Lin Pingzhi's accusation, her body shook as she sat back down. She tremblingly said, Did this really happen?" Lin Pingzhi laughed coldly. Shameless lowly people. Both of you, father and daughter, conspired very well to entice me. Huashan School's Miss Yue is married to me, a little kid with nowhere to go, with no family to return to. Why is that, if it isn't for the evil resisting sword manual? Once the sword manual is in your hand, why would you still bother with me? Yue Lingshan gasped and cried. She said, sobbing, You're blaming a good person here. If I had that idea, then let me be punished by heaven and earth. You secretly set your traitorous plan up, Lin Pingzhi said. From the beginning, I've kept in the dark, and I didn't understand a single thing. Now, with both of my eyes blind, I can see everything clearly. If the two of you, father and daughter, set all these up, then why? Yue Lingshan slowly walked towards him and said, Don't let your imagination run wild. My heart towards you is still the same as before. Lin Pingzhi snorted in contempt. Yue Lingshan went on, Let's go back to Huashan and tend to your injuries. It doesn't matter if your eyes get better or not. If I have any ill intention behind this, then let me die more miserably than you Tanghai. Lin Pingzhi laughed coldly. I don't know what kind of crafty idea you have for talking so nicely to me. Yue Lingshan didn't pay any more attention to him, but she said to Ying Ying, Sister, I'd like to borrow a carriage from you. Of course you can. Would you like to have 2 Hangshan School sisters to accompany you on your journey? Yue Lingshan couldn't stop whimpering as she replied, No need. Many thanks. Ying Ying pulled the carriage over and gave her the rein and whip. Yue Lingshan held onto Lin Pingzhi's arm and said, Let's get on the carriage. Lin Pingzhi wasn't willing, but both of his eyes couldn't see a thing, and it was very hard for him to walk. After hesitating for a while, he finally went inside the carriage. Yue Lingshan bit her lip and jumped onto the driver's seat. She nodded her head at Ying Ying to show her thanks, then cracked her whip, urging the mule to draw the carriage towards the northwest. She didn't give a glance towards Ling Huchong at all. Well, that was kind of sad, right? All right, let's take a break. Give me a 5-minute break, you guys. Oh shit, Losh sent me sent me some music to play. But it's on Discord, and I haven't installed Discord on my computer yet. All right, I'll be right back, okay? I'm back. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna post the song I just played in chat. All right. So poor Lin Pingzhi, right? Now he's super suspicious of everyone, even his own wife, even Ling Huchong. Which, like, what did he do to you? Nothing. Didn't make any sense. So he's suspicious of everyone. He thinks his wife was in on the trick to get him to hand over his family's sword techniques. Ling Huchong watched the carriage disappearing into the horizon. His heart was sour and tears were about to flow down from his eyes. He thought, both of the Marshall brother Lin's eyes are blind, and little Marshall's sister is also injured. The two of them have no one else to rely on while slowly going on their long journey. What would be the best thing to do? If the Qingcheng School's disciples chased them to take revenge, how could they fight back? He saw the disciples of Qingcheng had surrounded Yu Canghai's corpse and then put it on a horse before going southwesterly. Even though they weren't, they went in the opposite direction to that of Lin Pingzhi and Yue Lingshan. How would he know if they turned north after going dozens of li into their journey and go after the Lin husband and wife? As he pondered over what Lin Pingzhi and Yue Lingshan said to each other, he felt that there were still countless unsaid feelings associated with them. Even though other people wouldn't be able to see the love and hate between a husband and wife, it was clear the two of them would definitely not have a harmonious marriage. He thought little Marshall's sister was still so young. Her parents loved her so dearly, and the Marshall brothers in the school cherished her deeply. But to be insulted so by Lin Pingzhi, he couldn't help shedding his tears for her. Ling Hu's fight versus Ling Shan probably made him jealous. Yeah, probably. Probably. Still not logical. Doesn't make any sense. On the very same day, after they had gone for more than 10 li, they rested inside the main hall of a broken down temple for the night. It was the middle of the night and Ling Huchong had been sleeping, but his sleep had been interrupted by unsettling dreams for a few times already. In his sleep, he suddenly heard a soft voice calling him, "Brother Chong! Brother Chong!" Ling Huchong groaned and woke up, and then he heard Ying Ying's voice. "Come outside, I have something to talk to you about." Ling Huchong quickly sat up and walked outside the temple. He saw Ying Ying sitting on top of the stone steps with both of her hands cupping her cheeks. She was gazing at the moon, which was half covered by clouds. Ling Huchong walked towards her and sat beside her. The night was deep and everything was peaceful. After some time, Ying Ying said, "You're concerned about your little Marshall sister?" "Yes, there are many things which are hard to understand." "You're worried she'll be bullied by her husband?" Ling Huchong let out a sigh. "That's their own matter. How can other people meddle in it?" "You're afraid the Qingcheng disciples will go after them?" "Qingcheng disciples are pained by the loss of their master, so when they see the two of them injured, they'll want to go and harm them. That'll be a reasonable assumption." "Why don't you think of a way to save them?" Ling Huchong sighed. "I heard what Marshall Brother Lin said. He's quite jealous of me. Even if I have good intention in helping him, I'm afraid I'll ruin the harmony between the two of them even more." "That's one. The other apprehension you have in your heart is that I'll be unhappy. Is that right?" Ling Huchong nodded his head and held her left hand. Her palm was cold. He softly said, "Ying Ying, you're the only person I have in this world. If a suspicion also aroused between the two of us, then what would that mean?" Ying Ying slowly rested her head on his shoulder. "Put your head on my shoulders." Since your heart already thinks like that, how can there be suspicion between us? It's not too late yet. Let's go chase after them and don't let suspicion keep us away and rouse a lifelong of hatred. What? Rouse a life of hatred? Ling Huchong was startled and his eyes glazed over in fear. Lifelong of hatred. Lifelong of hatred. He saw in his mind dozens of Qingcheng disciples surrounding the carriage Lin Pingzhi and Yue Lingshan were riding, and dozens of swords viciously thrusting and stabbing at it. He couldn't stop his body from trembling when thinking about it. I'll go wake Sister Yihe and Yi Qing up, so you can order them to go back to Hengshan by themselves," Ying Ying said. "We'll secretly protect your little Marshall sister on her journey. Then we'll go back to the White Cloud Convent after that." Yihe and Yi Qing saw that Ling Huchong's injury had not completely healed yet, so they were quite worried. But since his mind was already decided, he was so anxious to save his little Marshall sister, it wasn't appropriate for them to advise him otherwise. So they gave him a big bottle of medicine and put it in the carriage. When Ling Huchong gave the order to Yihe and Yi Qing, Ying Ying stood on the side looking the other way. She didn't dare to look at Yihe and Yi Qing, thinking they would laugh at them for going together in one carriage at night. Not until the mule-drawn carriage had gone for a few miles that she let out a sigh and the blushing on her cheeks subsided. She recognized the way they were taking. It was a major road going northwest towards Mount Huashan, and it was unlikely for them to get lost. The mule drawing their carriage was healthy, and it galloped quite fast. In the calm of the night, they could only hear the rumbling of wheels and the tick-tock sound of the hooves. Ling Hucheng felt appreciative towards Ying Ying, and he thought, for my sake, she agrees to do anything. She knows I'm very concerned about little Marshall's sister, so she comes with me to protect me. She really knows me well. I wonder from which of my previous lives did she come from. Ying Ying hurried the mule up, and it went quickly for a few miles before it slowed down again. We'll protect your Marshall sister and Marshall brother in secret. If they meet with trouble along the way, then we'll go out to help. It's best if we don't let them know. I think it'll be better if we disguise ourselves. That's right, disguise yourself as that big bearded man. Ying Ying shook her head. That won't do. Your little Marshall sister already saw me in that disguise besides the place of worship. Then what would be your disguise? Ying Ying pointed to a farmhouse in front of them with her whip and said, I'll go and steal some clothing. We'll change into two brothers and sisters from the farm. She originally wanted to say a couple, but as it reached the tip of her tongue, she felt it was inappropriate and immediately changed her word. Ling Hucheng guessed it, but knew she was very shy, so he didn't dare to make a joke about it and just smiled to himself. But Ying Ying was just turning her head around and caught a glimpse of his smile, and her face turned red. What's so funny? Ling Hucheng smiled. Nothing. I was just thinking if that family doesn't have any girl, then there's only an old granny and a young kid living there. Then I'd have to call you granny again. Ying Ying giggled and remembered the days when she had just met Ling Hucheng, and he kept on calling her granny at that time. She felt warmth in her heart as she jumped down from the carriage to go towards that farmhouse. Ling Hucheng saw her leaping lightly to go over the wall, followed by the sound of a dog barking. But after one bark, it became quiet again. He thought Ying Ying must have kicked it dizzy. After some time, he saw... What? She kicked the dog, guys. After some time, he saw her coming out with some clothes in her hands. When she reached the side of the carriage, he saw that she appeared to be smiling, and she had a funny expression on her face. She quickly threw the clothes into the carriage, jumped into it, and started laughing loudly. Ling Hucheng picked up some of the clothes and inspected them under the moonlight. They were the clothes of an old peasant and an old woman. The clothes of the old woman were particularly big, inlaid with green flower laces. It was in an old style, and clearly not the clothes of a young farm girl at all. Among the clothes there was also a man's cap, a head cover for a woman, and a tobacco tube. Next time wear gigantic sunglasses. Ying Ying laughed. You're Ling Hu, the half-deity. You guessed right, there was a granny in the farmhouse, but it's a pity there's no kid, she said till here when she blushed furiously and stopped talking. Ling Hucheng smiled teasingly. So they're brother and sister? The two are really good to each other. One doesn't want to take a wife, the other doesn't want to get married. They still live until 70, 80 years old, and they're still together. Ying Ying bit her lip, smiling. You know it's not like that. They're not brother and sister? That's really strange. Ying Ying couldn't help laughing. Then, at the back of the carriage, she put on the clothes of the old farm woman on top of her gown, and she also put on the head cover on her head. She then grabbed some dirt from the side and rubbed it on her face. After that, she helped Ling Hucheng to change into the old peasant's clothes. Ling Hucheng was barely a few inches away from her cheek, and when he felt her breath caressing his face, he couldn't help feeling moved. He really wanted to just give her a hug and kiss her, but he knew she was extremely stern and wasn't the least bit licentious. If he offended her and raised her ire, then it would be hard to say what would happen. So he quickly collected his thought and didn't dare to move. He suddenly looked quite strange as he was restraining himself from doing something. Ying Ying saw him and understood. She smiled. Good kid, Granny adores you. She extended her palm and rubbed the dirt on his face. Ling Hucheng shut his eyes closed and felt her warm and soft palm lightly massaging his face all over. He felt unspeakable comfort and hoped she would continue doing this forever. After some time, Ying Ying said, "Done. Your little martial sister will definitely not recognize you at night, but be careful not to speak. Rub the dirt on my neck, too." "Who's going to look at your neck?" Ying Ying asked with a laugh, but she quickly understood his meaning. Ling Huchong wanted her to massage his neck. With a bent middle finger, she knocked softly on his forehead and turned around to sit on the driver's seat. Wait, did she just give him the finger? That's rude. Wait, you don't like Ying Ying? Why not? Is it because she kicked the dog? That was also rude. Ling Huchong smiled and inquired, "Oh, so what did you see at the farmhouse?" "I didn't see anything funny. That grandpa and grandma are husband and wife." Ying Ying laughed. "So they're not brother and sister, but husband and wife instead." Ling Huchong smiled. "You're teasing me again. I'm not talking." "All right, they're not husband and wife. They're brother and sister." "Stop interrupting me, can you not? I jumped over the wall and a dog barked, so I gave it a slap and made it faint. But the grandpa and grandma were woken up because of it. The grandma said, 'Ah, Mao, I must have seen a weasel coming to steal the chicken.' Grandpa said, 'Old Black isn't barking anymore. Old Black isn't barking anymore. It can't be a weasel.' That old grandma suddenly laughed and she said, 'I think that weasel must have followed your example from the past when you visited my house in the middle of the night. You always brought a piece of meat to give to my dog.'" Ling Huchong smiled. "This grandma is really bad. She's scolding you and saying you're a weasel." He knew Ying Ying was very shy. She was talking about the private matter between the old husband and wife farmers, so he pretended not to understand. Then, perhaps, she would continue with her story. Otherwise, if he said something a little bit romantic, she would stop talking altogether. Ying Ying laughed and continued. "That grandma was talking about the time before they got married," she said until here when she straightened her body and lifted the rein high to urge the mule to quicken its run. "So, what happened before they got married? They must have adhered to customs really strictly. Even in the middle of the night, sitting all by themselves in a carriage, they definitely wouldn't dare to hug or kiss." Ying Ying snorted and stopped talking. Ling Huchong continued. "Dear darling, what did they say? Please tell me." Ying Ying smiled but kept her silence. That sounded weird coming from his mouth. In the middle of the night, they only heard the hooves of the mule hitting the road, and the peacefulness was really pleasing to the ear. Ling Huchong looked out and saw the moonlight was like water flowing out into the straight and broad road. In the mist, and the mist enveloped the trees on the side of the road. The mule-drawn carriage slowly entered the mist, and everything outside couldn't be seen clearly. Even the back of Ying Ying's body was wrapped around a haze of mist. "What's up, Steven? Thank you so much for the $5. That's awesome. I appreciate it." It was just at the beginning of spring, so the fragrance from the flowers was sometimes thick and sometimes light, as the wind carried it. The pleasure of it was all unspeakable. Ling Huchong had not drunk any wine for a long time, but with this feeling in his mind, it felt just like being intoxicated. Ying Ying was still carrying a smile on her face as her thought went back to what those two old husband and wife were talking. The old grandpa said, "That night I didn't have any meat at all, so I killed a chicken from your neighbor and fed it to your dog. What's that dog called?" Old grandma answered, "Big Flower." Old grandpa said, "That's right, Big Flower. It ate half a chicken and didn't bark anymore. Your father, mother, all didn't know. Our Ah Mao must have gotten the same thing tonight." Old grandma said, "You knew you're Mary and paid no attention to others is hard work. Later on, my tummy became big and father hit me viciously." Old grandpa said, Lucky your stomach became big. Otherwise, why would your father agree to marry you to such a poor kid like me? That time I was looking forward to your stomach getting big. Old Grandma suddenly got mad and scolded. You devil! So you did it deliberately, and you've been hiding the truth from me. I won't spare you now. Old Grandpa said, Don't be noisy. Amao will also bear a kid. What are you noisy about? You guys like my old people voice? By that time, Ying Ying was afraid Ling Huchang would be worried, so she didn't listen anymore and stole the clothes before leaving a big silver ingot on the table and going out. She was going around lightly, and that husband and wife didn't notice at all. It was because they were already old and slow, and they were talking excitedly, so they didn't feel her presence at all. Who knows what they would have done if she kept watching. When Ying Ying thought of the conversation between the two of them, her face and ears turned red. Fortunately, it was night. Otherwise, if Ling Huchang were to see her face, she would have been totally embarrassed. She stopped urging the mule, and the big carriage gradually slowed down to a normal speed. They turned around a bend and arrived beside the bank of a large lake. There were willows hanging around the bank of the lake, and in the middle of it was the reflection of the round moon flickering about as the surface of the lake moved. Okay. I think for the rest of the chapter it's just these two flirting, which I'm fine with. Ying Ying softly asked, Brother Chang, are you asleep? I'm asleep. I'm dreaming. What are you dreaming? I'm dreaming I'm carrying a big piece of meat and going up the dark wood cliff to feed your family dog. You're not a proper person. No wonder your dream is also not proper, Ying Ying said, smiling. The two of them sat alongside each other inside the carriage, gazing at the lake. Ling Huchang extended his right hand and put it on the back of Ying Ying's left hand. Ying Ying's hand trembled slightly, but she didn't take it back. Ling Huchang thought, if only we could be like this forever, and not see the bloodshed in Wulin ever again. Even if I were to become a god, I still wouldn't be as happy as I am right now. You don't think she kicked the dog? That would have made it yelp alarmingly. Either it was killed or she soothed it somehow. No, it said she. I think she said she smacked it or something. That she hit the dog's head, and it stopped or something. I don't know. What are you thinking? Ying Ying asked, and Ling Huchang told her what he was just thinking of. Ying Ying turned over her hand and gripped his. Brother Chang, I'm really happy. Me too. Even though I appreciated you commanding that group of heroes to attack Shaolin Temple, I wasn't as happy as I am right now. If I were your best friend and I was trapped inside the Shaolin Temple, you would have also tried to save me because of the code of righteousness of Jianghu. But right now, you only think of me and are not thinking of your little martial sister. As she mentioned your little martial sister, Ling Huchang's entire body quivered and he blurted out, Ayo, let's go catch up to her. Oh, you idiot. Ying Ying softly said, Only now I believe that in your heart you finally thought of me a bit more and thought of your little martial sister a bit less. She lightly pulled on the rein to turn the mule around. The mule-drawn carriage returned to the major road, and with a crack of her whip, the mule ran quickly. In just a short time, they had covered more than 20 li, and their mule had become weary, so it slowed down. After turning a couple of bends, they saw a field of tall sorghum in front of them, with the major road running straight through the middle of it. The pale moonlight on the ground looked like a piece of big green silk spreading throughout the ground. As they gazed far away, they saw a carriage at the other end of the road, which seemed to be still and unmoving. This carriage looks like Marshal Brother Lin's carriage, Ling Huchang remarked. Let's go slowly and have a look, Ying Ying replied. She then urged the mule to go slowly as it got nearer to the other carriage. After they had traveled for a bit, they became aware that the carriage in front was actually still moving, but very slowly. They also saw there was a person walking besides the mule, who was unexpectedly Lin Pingzhi. Oh yeah. Okay, so she did bonk the doggo. No, Bigfoot. The dog didn't die. I don't think so. I think it just fell unconscious. So I don't think she's a dog killer. I don't think she's a dog murderer. She's just a dog abuser. From the shape of the driver's body, they saw that it was Yue Lingshan who was sitting on the driver's seat. Ling Hucheng was surprised, and he extended his hand to the rein to stop their mule. What are they doing? He whispered. Wait here, I'll go have a look, Ying Ying said. If they were to catch up with the other carriage, then the other party would have discovered them, so they must use Qinggong to secretly peep in on them. Ling Hucheng really wanted to go with her, but his injury had not yet healed, so he couldn't use his Qinggong. He had nodded his head and replied, All right. Ying Ying lightly leapt off the carriage and rushed into the thicket of tall sorghum on the side of the road. The tall sorghum had grown very thick, so once someone entered it, they wouldn't be seen even in the light of the day. But these tall sorghum had not grown very tall yet, and their leaves weren't that dense, so your head would still be exposed outside. She stooped down as she went and followed the sound of the hooves until she was finally alongside Yue Lingshan's mule-drawn carriage. She heard Lin Pingzhi say, My sword manual was already taken by your father a long time ago, and I don't have any other move he doesn't know. Why must you insist on following me everywhere? You've always been suspicious of my father having plans on your sword manual without any reason at all. Listen to your own conscience. When you first entered the Huashan school, you didn't have any sword manual, but I've always been good to you. Could it be it all means nothing to you? Yue Lingshan reasoned. My Lin family's evil-resisting sword art is well known throughout the world. Yu Canghai, Mu Gaofeng, they both couldn't find anything on my father, so they searched me. How do I know you didn't deliberately treat me well because of your father and mother's order? Yue Lingshan whimpered. If you think that way, then what can I do? Did I mistakenly blame you then? Lin Pingzhi vehemently asked. This evil-resisting sword manual, didn't your father finally take it from my hand? Everyone knows if you want the evil-resisting sword manual, then you must take it from this little kid Lin. Yu Canghai, Mu Gaofeng, Yue Buchun, what's the difference? The only difference is Yue Buchun succeeded, while Yu Canghai and Mu Gaofeng failed. You're slandering my father. Who do you think I am? Yue Lingshan angrily retorted. If not for... Lin Pingzhi halted his steps and shouted, What are you going to do? If not for me being blind, injured, you're going to kill me. Isn't that right? My eyes were blinded a long time ago. So when you first knew me and treated me well, your eyes were already blind? She reined in the mule and stopped the carriage. That's right. How would I know what you had planned? How would I know you had planned everything? Because of this evil-resisting sword manual, you actually went to Fuzhou to open up a small wine shop. When that kid Yu from the Qincheng school bullied you, actually your martial art was much higher than him, but you pretended not to know any martial art and made me help you. Lin Pingzhi, you were one blind, stupid kid, relying on your three-legged cat martial art and actually daring to be heroic and outraged by injustice, Lin Pingzhi said. You're everything to your father and mother. If not for something big and important, why would they agree to let you show your face in public? Why would they agree to let you sell wine in such a humble shop? Father originally sent second martial brother to go to Fuzhou, Yue Lingshan replied. It was me who wanted to go down the mountain to follow second martial brother. Your father controls the school's disciples so strictly. If he believed it was inappropriate, even if you kneeled and implored him for 3 days and 3 nights, he still wouldn't allow you to go. Naturally, it was because he couldn't trust second martial brother that he also sent you to watch over things. Yue Lingshan was quiet, looking like she felt Lin Pingzhi's conjecture wasn't completely unreasonable. After a little while, she said, You can believe me or not, but before I got to Fuzhou, I had never heard of the evil resisting sword manual. Father only said big martial brother had beaten up the disciples of Qing Cheng, so there's a dislike between the two parties. At that time, the Qing Cheng school was carrying out a large operation and was moving to the east, so he was afraid that it would have been disadvantageous to our school. And that was why second martial brother and I went to Fuzhou to investigate. Lin Pingzhu let out a sigh. It seemed he had softened up as he said, Fine, I'll believe you this time, but I've already changed into this. Why are you still following me for? You and I are only husband and wife in name only. We're not real husband and wife. You're still a virgin. You can just go back. Go back to Ling Ho Chang. When Ying Ying heard you and I are only husband and wife in name only, we're not real husband and wife, you're still a virgin, she couldn't help being surprised. And she thought, what's the reason for that? So, okay, this is a little bit important. So the two haven't consummated their marriage yet, okay? She immediately became bashful and her whole face turned bright red. Even her neck was feeling hot. She thought, for me to listen to the private conversation of a husband and wife of another family is already very inappropriate. But to think of a reason for that, that's really... She turned around to go, but she only went for a few steps before her curiosity got the better of her, and she halted to listen for more. But she was afraid of being discovered, so she didn't dare to return to her previous hiding spot. And now she was further away from the two of them. However, the conversation between them could still be clearly heard. She heard Yue Lingshan quietly say, After we had been married for 3 days, I already knew you hated me. Even though we were in the same room, you didn't want to be on the same bed with me. Since you already hate me so, why did you marry me? Lin Pingzhu sighed. I don't hate you. You don't hate me? Then why did you pretend to be very caring towards me during the day, but at night, when we got back into our room, you didn't even want to talk to me? Father and mother have already repeatedly asked how you were treating me. I've always told them you treated me very well. She said till here when she suddenly bawled her eyes out. Lin Pingzhu leapt up onto the carriage, holding both of her shoulders. He then severely said, You said your father and mother asked you repeatedly, wanting to know how I treated you. Is this true? Of course it's true, Yue Lingshan answered in sobs. Why do I need to lie to you about this? You know I didn't treat you well. I didn't even share the same bed with you. So how did you answer them? Lin Pingzhu inquired. I was already married to you, so I belong to the Lin family. I was hoping you would have a change of feelings soon. I treated you genuinely. How can I lay out my husband's own fault? My own husband's fault? Lin Pingzhu gritted his teeth and did not answer her for a long time. After a long time, he slowly said, I thought your father was worried about you, so he was showing mercy towards me. Who would have thought the entire thing was covered up by you? If you didn't answer like you did, I would have died on Mount Huashan a long time ago. How can that be? Yue Lingshan sobbingly asked. Newly married couples can be a little bit at odds with each other. How can the father-in-law kill the son-in-law just because of that? Ying Ying heard till here when she advanced forward a few more steps. Lin Pingzhu said with hatred in his voice, He wants to kill me, not because I don't treat you well. It was because I learned the evil-resisting sword art. I really don't understand this. These last few days, the sword art that father and you have been using have been really strange, but its power is incredibly powerful. But his power is powerful? Okay. Father defeated Zuo Langchan and snatched the Five Mountains School's headmaster position, while you killed Yu Canghai and Mu Gaofeng. Could it be that the sword art is the evil resisting sword art? That's right. That really is my Fuzhou Fuzhou's Lin family's evil resisting sword art. Years ago, my great-grandfather Yuan Tu used this 72 groups of sword moves to intimidate the demonical and created the Fortune Prestige Escort House business. All the heroes in the realm respected and feared him because of this. When he talked of this matter, his voice became louder and it was full of pride. But you've never told me you've learned this set of sword arts. How could I dare? Ling Huchang tried to snatch that Buddhist robe in Fuzhou, but he couldn't do it. But this sword manual written on the Buddhist robe instead fell into your father's hand. Fell into your father's hand. No, it can't be. Yue Lingshan sharply interrupted. Father said Big Martial Brother was the one who snatched the sword manual. I begged him to return it to you, but he wasn't willing at all. Lin Pingzhi snorted and laughed coldly. Yue Lingshan continued. Big Martial Brother's sword art is very formidable, and even my father isn't his match. Could it be the sword art he's using isn't the evil resisting sword art? That it wasn't learned from your family's evil resisting sword manual? Lin Pingzhi again laughed derisively. Even though Ling Huchang is sly and deceitful, he's nothing compared to your father. Also, his swordplay is a mess. How can it be compared to my family's evil-resisting sword art? During the fight, besides the place of worship, he couldn't even compete with you, and was injured heavily under your sword. So how can this sword art be compared to my family's sword art? He deliberately let me win, Yue Lingshan quietly mumbled. Lin Pingzhi laughed coldly. His love for you is so deep. If these words were heard by Ying Ying the day before, she would have gotten enraged, even though she knew already Ling Huchang deliberately lost that sword fight. But after spending the night together in the same carriage and talking clearly beside the lake, they knew each other's hearts, and she now felt sweetness in her heart instead. He treated you really well before, but right now he treats... Wait, hold on. This is her talking. He treated you really well before, but right now he treats me much better. You can't blame him for this. It's not because he had a change of heart towards you, but it's because you've been bullying him too fiercely. So, Big Martial Brothers' sword art isn't the evil resisting sword art? Yue Lingshan concluded. Then why did father always say he stole your family's evil resisting sword manual? That day when father expelled him from the Huashan school, he declared this to be one of his big crimes. Then I've been wrongly blaming him. Lin Pingzhi laughed mockingly. What wrongly blaming? Ling Huchang also wanted to rob my sword manual. He had actually already stolen it, but that bandit met with the grandpa bandit, so after he got injured and fainted, your father took it from his body and took the opportunity to lay the blame on him to cover his track. This is called thief crying thief. What thief crying thief? Yue Lingshan angrily retorted. You're saying such a horrible thing. And the things your father did, aren't they horrible? The things he did, am I not allowed to say them? Oh, it ended at such a bad place. Because I know what's coming next. Should we finish the rest of it? Or is it too much? Wait, let me see how many pages it is. Oh, there's actually not that much left. Okay, let's just finish it, okay? Let's just finish part 3. Should we take a break? All right, let's take a break, okay? Because some good stuff are coming in the next chapter, I believe. So what have we learned? So remember, Ling Huchang had the robe with his family's sword art, the evil resisting sword art written on it, right? So he had it, and he was attacked, and he fell unconscious. And after he woke up, it was gone. The robe was gone, right? So the sword manual was gone. Everyone blamed him. Everyone thought he stole it. Okay, but he knew that he didn't steal it. He just woke up and it was gone. So now I think we learned that his master Yue Buchun has stolen the sword manual. Okay, so his master is not a good dude. Okay, he's a scheming dude. All right, give me 5 minutes. Okay, 5 minute break, then we'll finish it. Okay, chapter 3 is not that long. All right, I'll be right back. And we're back. All right, the conclusion of this chapter. It's this momentous chapter. Yue Lingshan let out a sigh. That day in Xianyang Lane, that Buddhist robe was stolen by the bad people from the Songshan school. Big martial brother killed those two and took the robe back. This is not necessarily because he wanted it for himself. Big martial brother is a very big-hearted person. Ever since he was small, he'd never been greedy and never coveted other people's things. When father said he took your sword manual, I doubted it. But since father said it, and I also saw how big martial brother had suddenly advanced a lot in his swordplay to the level above that of my father, I believed everything was true. Ying Ying thought, how can you say these words now, when Chonglang's love for you wasn't in vain? So Lang has a romantic connotation. Oh, Chonglang. Lin Pingxue sneered coldly. He's so good, why didn't you go with him? Brother Ping, even until now, you still don't understand my heart. Big martial brother and I have grown up together since we were little. In my heart, he's just like my real brother. I love him dearly like a family member and regard him as my big brother. I've never regarded him as my lover. Oof. Sorry, Ling Huchong. Oh, good thing he's not listening to this, because that would be like a dagger in his heart. Ever since you came to Mount Huashan, you and I have matched really well. If I don't see you for some time, then my heart becomes unhappy and uneasy. My feeling towards you will never change. Your father and you are somewhat different. You're like your mother. His voice had become softer as he said this. It was clear his true feelings toward Yue Lingshan was being moved. The two of them didn't speak another word for a long time before Yue Lingshan broke the silence. Brother Ping, you have such a deep hatred towards my father, so it won't be easy for the two of you to reconcile. I'm already married. I will definitely always follow you. Let's go somewhere far and find somewhere secluded to pass our days happily there. Lin Pingxue laughed coldly and replied, What you thought is quite good, but the whole world would have known by now that I killed Yu Canghai and Mu Gaofeng, so your father naturally knows that I've been learning the evil resisting sword art. How can he let me keep on living in this world? You said my father sought your sword manual. Based on the fact, there's nothing I can do to defend him, Yue Lingshan dejectedly said. But you keep on saying that he's going to kill you after you've learned the evil resisting sword art. What's the logic in that? The sword manual belongs to your family, so it's perfectly justified and totally natural for you to learn this sword art. There's no reason at all for my father to want to kill you, and he won't kill you just because of this. Yeah, he's totally brother zoned. Poor Lin Pingzhi. You can say this because you don't understand what kind of person your father is. You also don't understand what this evil resisting sword manual really is. Even though I'm totally devoted to you, I still don't understand what's in your heart. That's right. You don't understand. You don't understand. Why do you want to understand? He became really irritable at this point. Yue Lingshan didn't dare to speak too much, so she said, let's go. Go where? Wherever you want to go. I'll go with you. I'll go with you even to the edge of the world. What you're saying is true? No matter what happens in the future, you won't regret it? I've made up my mind to be with you, to marry you. I've long ago decided to be with you forever. How can I regret it? Your eyes' injury, whether it's going to heal or not, I'll accompany you, always, attend to you, and be together until both of us died. These words were said sincerely, and Ying Ying was moved on hearing them. Lin Pingzhi snorted, sounding like he didn't believe her. Yue Lingshan softly said, Brother Ping, you still don't believe me. Tonight, I'm going to give you everything, so you will trust me always. Tonight will be our wedding night, and we'll become real husband and wife. From today onwards, become real husband and wife. Her voice became softer and softer as she spoke. At the end, it was barely audible. Ying Ying became terribly embarrassed, and she thought, if I still listen to what they're doing now, how can I still be a person? She slowly moved away while secretly scolding. This Miss Yue is really shameless. They're in the middle of a major road. How can... Suddenly, she heard Lin Pingzhi ferociously crying out. His voice was extremely sad and shrill, followed by him shouting, Scram! Don't come over! Ying Ying started and thought, What's going on? Why is this Lin being so fierce? This was followed by Yue Lingshan weeping loudly. Lin Pingzhi shouted, Go away! Go away! Quickly, go far, far away! I'd rather be killed by your father. I don't want you to come with me. You're being so mean to me. What did I do wrong? Yue Lingshan cried. I... Lin Pingzhi stammered. After a pause, he went on, You... But he stopped talking. Say what your heart wants to say, Yue Lingshan said. Did I do something wrong? Or maybe you're blaming my father and don't want to forgive me. Just say it clearly once, and then you don't need to do anything. I'll immediately kill myself with my sword. With a hissing sound, she drew her sword. Ying Ying thought, She's going to be forced to die by Lin Pingzhi. I have to save her. She quickly walked back and got very near to the carriage so she could rescue her. Lin Pingzhi again stammered, I... After some time, he let out a long sigh and said, It's not your fault. It's me who is not good. Yue Lingshan cried mournfully. Lin Pingzhi relented and said, All right, I'll tell you. You can hit me, kill me, but don't leave me not understanding anything, Yue Lingshan said between sobs. Since your feeling towards me isn't fake, then I'll tell you everything so your heart can die over this. Why? Yue Lingshan was perplexed. Why? My Lin family's evil-resisting sword art is very famous throughout Wulin. Yu Canghai and your father are both headmasters of a school. Their own sword arts are already strong, but they still planned on stealing my family's sword manual. But my father's martial art is useless, and other people can just bully and humiliate him without him being able to fight back at all. Now, why is that? Maybe because father-in-law wasn't suitable to learning martial art, or maybe his body was weak, Yue Lingshan guessed. From among the school's disciples in Wulin, it's not necessarily true that every one of them has strong martial art. You're wrong. Even though my father's swordplay was no good, it was only because he didn't study it enough. His internal energy was weak, and his attainment of the sword art was also poor. But the evil-resisting sword art that he taught me, the foundation was wrong, and from the beginning to the end, it wasn't right. Yue Lingshan hummed deeply and said, This is really strange. Actually, it's not strange, Lin Pingzhi said. Do you know what my great-grandfather Yuan Tu originally was? I don't. He was originally a monk. So he was a Buddhist. Some heroes of Wulin do a lot of outrageous things in Jianghu, but when they get older, they get quite worn out from all the things happening in the world, so they become Buddhists. This can happen, Yue Lingshan said. No, my great-grandfather didn't become a Buddhist when he got old. He was a monk first before returning to secular life again. There were also heroes who were monks when they're young. Our founding ancestor of the Ming, Emperor Zhu Yuanzhang, he was a monk before he became emperor. Ying thought, Miss Yue knows her husband is narrow-minded. Not only does she not dare to offend him, she keeps trying to reassure him. She then heard Yue Lingshan go on. Father-in-law must have told you that your great-grandfather Yuan Tu was a monk when he was young. My father never talked about it. I don't think he knew about it. My house at the Xiangyang Lane has a Buddhist hall in it. We went in there together on that night. Yes. Why was this evil-resisting sword manual recorded on a Buddhist robe? It was because he was originally a monk, and when he saw the sword manual, he quickly wrote it down on his Buddhist robe and got out. Once he returned to secular life, he built a Buddhist hall at home and didn't dare to forget about Buddha. Your guess is very reasonable, Yue Lingshan agreed, but it's also possible that the sword manual was given to Grandfather Yuan Tu by an eminent reverend, and that the sword manual was originally written on the Buddhist robe. So Grandfather Yuan Tu may have obtained this sword manual frankly and uprightly. It's not like that. Your conjecture isn't necessarily right. It's not my conjecture. It's what Grandfather Yuan Tu wrote on the Buddhist robe. Ah, so that's how it is. He wrote this at the end of the sword manual. He was originally a monk, but because of an especially lucky chance, he heard of this sword manual from other people's mouths and wrote it down on the Buddhist robe. He warned that this sword art is too cruel and sinister, and once you've learned it, you'll die without an heir. It's already unsuitable for even nuns or monks to learn it, as it violates the compassion of the Buddha. So for secular people, they shouldn't learn this even more. But he had already learned it himself. At that time, I also thought the same thing as you. This sword art is said to be cruel and sinister and inadvisable to be practiced. But after Grandmaster Yuan Tu studied it, didn't he still manage to take a wife and get an heir? That's right. But it could be that he took a wife and got an heir first before studying this sword art. It can't be, Lin Pingzhi said. Everyone who studies martial art in this world, no matter how heroic you are or how powerful your martial art already is, once you see this sword manual, you couldn't possibly not practice it because you want to see how the first move goes. Once you've tried the first move, you'll definitely try the second. Once you've tried the second move, you cannot not try the third. Even if you haven't seen a sword manual before, once you've seen it, then you'll definitely go crazy about it, and it's very difficult to free yourself from it. And you'll practice it from top to bottom, even if you know there's an enormous disaster tied to practicing it. You still wouldn't care about it. Ying heard till here when her thoughts turned to her father. Daddy once said this evil-resisting sword manual actually has the same root as our sex's sunflower manual, and they have the same fundamental principle. It's no wonder Yue Buchun and Lin Pingzhi's sword art actually looks very similar to Dongfang Bubai's. She also thought, Daddy said there's something harmful in the martial art contained in the sunflower manual. He knows that once a person who studies martial art sees the contents of this martial art secret, he would definitely fall under its trap and would find it hard to free himself from it, even if he knows it'd be disastrous to study it. So he simply refused to look at the manual, which was the most sensible thing to do. A thought suddenly flashed in her mind. Then why did he give it to Dongfang Bubai? She thought till this point, and she automatically deduced. So, at that time, Daddy already saw Dongfang Bubai harboring an ill intention, so he gave him the manual to harm him. But Uncle Xiang didn't know anything about this, and Dongfang Bubai was also ignorant of this, and was still blissfully unworried. Actually, my father is such an astute and formidable person. How could he have been muddle-headed for so long? It's just that a person's thought isn't as good as the thought of heaven. Dongfang Bubai unexpectedly struck first, captured Daddy, and imprisoned him under the West Lake. But his heart wasn't especially bad. If at that time he were to have killed Daddy, or may have given an order not to give him food or drink, how could Daddy have the opportunity to take his revenge? Actually, it was really a lucky thing that we were able to kill Dongfang Bubai. If not for Changlang's help, Daddy, Uncle Qiang, Shang Guanyun, and me, the four of us would have been killed by Dongfang Bubai at that time. Also, if it weren't for Yang Lianqing messing with his heart, Dongfang Bubai would still be undefeated. She thought till here, and she couldn't help feeling that Dongfang Bubai was somewhat pitiful. She thought, after he captured my dad, he treated me generously and gave me a lot of gifts. When I was in the Divine Sun Moon sect, I was no different from a princess. Today, when my own dad is the chief, I instead didn't have the authority I used to have. Now that I already have Chonglang, why do I still need that authority for? As her thoughts wandered to the past, she thought her father's scheming was very deep, and she couldn't help but be frightened. Even now, Dad still hasn't told Chonglang the method of dispersing the internal energy. Chonglang had already amassed several different qi from other people, and they still haven't been dispersed. This disaster will get bigger and bigger as days go by. Sooner or later, he will definitely be in trouble. Daddy said he must join our sect, and once he did, not only will he be imparted with this technique, he will immediately be sworn in as the heir to the chief. But Chonglang isn't willing to submit, and he will be in a great deal of trouble later. She was half happy and half worried. As she quietly stood in the cluster of tall sorghum, her thoughts wildly went from here to there, but no matter what she thought about, it always returned to Ling Hu Chong. At this time, Lin Pingzhi and Yue Lingshan were also quiet. After a long time, Lin Pingzhi said, after grandfather Yuan Tu saw this sword manual, he of course practiced it straight away. If there's really a big trouble associated with this set of sword art, it wouldn't just come out straight away, Yue Lingshan reasoned. It's always after practicing for 10 years or so that the harm would come. Grandfather Yuan Tu must have taken a wife and gotten an heir before this trouble manifested itself. That's not it, Lin Pingzhi stressed each word without any hesitation. After a pause, he went on. In the beginning, I also thought the same thing as you did, but after a few days, I found out it wasn't so. My grandfather simply couldn't be Grandfather Yuan Tu's son. He's most likely adopted by Grandfather Yuan Tu. Grandfather Yuan Tu took a wife and got an heir merely to fool everyone. Yue Lingshan gasped in surprise and said in a trembling voice, Fool everyone? But why? Lin Pingzhi snorted but didn't answer. After some time, he said, when I first saw the sword manual, I was already very close to you. Several times I thought I should wait till we get married and become a real husband and wife before I start studying the sword art. But it's impossible for a martial art person to resist not studying what's written on that sword manual. I finally castrated myself to practice the sword. Yue Lingshan absent-mindedly replied, You castrated yourself to practice the sword? That's right, Lin Pingzhi gloomily said. The first sentence in the evil resisting sword manual is, to dominate Wu Lin, swipe your sword and castrate yourself. Why? Why? To practice this evil resisting sword art, you must start with the internal energy first. If you don't castrate yourself once you practice it, you will immediately feel like you're on fire, deviate, and die. That's how it is. Her voice was like a mosquito and very hard to hear. Ying Ying was also thinking, so that's why. Now she understood everything clearly. Why Dongfang Bubai, who was such a masculine man with the number one martial art of the world, was wearing women's clothes, embroidering, and was so crazy about Yang Lianting. So in order to practice this demonical martial art, he had become not a man and not a woman. She then heard Yue Lingshan sobbed lightly and said, Back then, Grandfather Yuan Tu... Wait. Back then, Grandfather Yuan Tu pretended to take a wife and get an heir to fool everyone. You're also... That's right. After I castrated myself, I still married you to fool people, but it's only to fool your father. Yue Lingshan wept sorrowfully upon hearing this. I've told you everything now, Lin Pingzhi said. You must hate me to the bone now. Why don't you just go away? I don't hate you, Yue Lingshan sobbed. You were forced by circumstances and had no other alternatives. I only hate whoever wrote that evil resisting sword manual back then. Why did he want to harm other people like that? Lin Pingzhi giggled. This senior was a eunuch. Yue Lingshan groaned. So my father is also like you? Since he studied this sword art, how can he be different? Your father is the headmaster of a school. If anyone found out he castrated himself and then spread the word out, how can he not become the laughingstock of Jianghu? That's why if he knew that I've learned this sword art, he must definitely kill me. He's already asked several times how I treated you because he wanted to know whether I've castrated myself or not. If at that time you complained even a little bit, then my life would have been gone. Now he knows. I've killed Yu Changhai, killed Mu Gaofeng. Lin Pingzhi was brimming with pride as he said this. Within a few days, the word would have spread throughout Wulin, and the whole world would know. In that case, I'm afraid my father won't let you go then. Where should we run off to? We? You already know what I am now. You still want to follow me? Of course, Brother Ping, my feeling towards you will always be the same. Your lot in this world is so pitiful. She had not finished saying this when she suddenly cried out and jumped off the carriage as Lin Pingzhi pushed her out. I don't want your pity. Who wants your pity? Lin Pingzhi angrily retorted. Lin Pingzhi's swordplay is complete. I'm not scared of anything. Wait until my eyes are better. Lin Pingzhi will then rule the world. Yue Buchun, Ling Huchong, Monk Fangzhang, Priest Chongshu, they are not my match. Ying Ying inwardly got angry, and she thought, wait till your eyes are better. Have your eyes ever been good? When Lin Pingzhi was injured, she originally felt quite sad for him, but when she saw how uncaring he was towards his wife, how ruthlessly he treated her, and also how conceited he was, she couldn't help despise him. She couldn't help but despise him. Yue Lingshan sighed. You must first look for a place to hide for a while. Wait till your eyes are better before doing anything else. I have a method to deal with your father. It must be horrible to hear, and of course you can't say what it is. Father also doesn't need to worry about you for now. I understand your father way more than you do. Tomorrow, I'm going to tell the first person I see about this. Yue Lingshan worriedly said, Is that necessary? Aren't you... Necessary? This is the method to preserve my life. If I'm going to tell every person I meet, in no time at all, word would have spread to your father's ear. Then, since Yue Buchun knows it was me who said this, he cannot kill me to shut me up. On the contrary, he must protect my life. Your idea is really strange. What's so strange about it? Whether your father has castrated himself or not, no one would be able to see it. When his beard falls off, he'll glue them on, and there will be people who will believe it, and those who won't. But if I suddenly die without any reason, everyone will say that Yue Buchun is the one who did it. This is called wishing to cover it up, but exposing it more instead. Yue Lingshan sighed and didn't say anything else. Ying Ying thought, this Lin Pingzhi has a very keen mind, and his method is formidable. Miss Yue is in a very difficult position here. She's trapped in the middle. Her parents' reputation will unavoidably be destroyed, but if she thought of a way to prevent it from happening, then it'll endanger her husband's life. Lin Pingzhi went on, even if both of my eyes can't see a thing from now on, I've avenged my parents, and I will never regret it. Ling Huchang told me the last words of my father. He said there's a relic in the old residence at Xiangyang Lane, and I should never take a look at it. This was the instruction of great-grandfather that great-grandfather left behind. Now I've taken a look at it. Even though I violated great-grandfather's instructions, I've taken revenge for my parents. If it weren't like this, other people would have said my Lin family's evil-resisting sword art has an unearned reputation, and that the heads of the Fortune Prestige Escort House has been cheating people. Back then, both father and you suspected Big Martial Brother. You were both saying that he took your Lin family's evil-resisting sword manual, saying that he fabricated father-in-law's last words. Just say I blamed him wrongly. What do you want to do? Lin Pingzhi interrupted. At that time, didn't you suspect him too? Yue Lingshan softly sighed. Big Martial Brother and you haven't known each other for a long time, so it's not surprising you suspected him. But father and me, we shouldn't have doubted him. The only person in this world who truly believed him was only mother. Ying Ying thought, who said only your mother? Lin Pingzhi coldly laughed. Your mother truly adores Ling Huchang. I don't know how many times your parents argued because of this little kid. Astounded, Yue Lingshan asked, my father and mother argued over Big Martial Brother? My father and mother never argue. How do you know about this? Lin Pingzhi laughed coldly and answered, never argue? That's only to put on an appearance in front of other people. For this matter, Yue Buchun put on his hypocrite mask. I heard it all with my own ears. Could it be fake? I didn't say fake, but it's really strange. How come I've never heard of it, but you've heard of it? I'll tell you now, it's all irrelevant. That day in Fuzhou, 2 people from Songshan School snatched that Buddhist robe away. These 2 people were killed by Ling Huchang, so naturally, the Buddhist robe was taken by Ling Huchang. But at that time, he was heavily injured and lost consciousness. I searched his body, but I didn't know where that Buddhist robe had gone to. So in Fuzhou City, you had already searched Big Martial Brother. That's right. So what? Nothing. Ying Ying thought, if Miss Yue follows this cunning and irritable little kid, she'll be miserable for the rest of her life. Suddenly, she also thought, I've been here for so long. Chong Lang must be worried. She tilted her ear to one side to listen, but there was no noise at all, so she thought that he must be settled and everything was well. Then she heard Lin Pingzhi continue. The Buddhist robe wasn't on Ling Huchang's body, so it must have been taken by your parents. From Fuzhou to Huashan, I quietly observed things. But your father covered up really well and didn't manage to see anything wrong at all. Your father was sick at that time. Of course, who would have known that once he's seen the evil-resisting sword manual, he immediately castrated himself to practice the sword. During the journey, there were a lot of people there, so I didn't dare to peep in on your parents. Once we returned to Huashan, I hid on top of the precipice outside your parents' bedroom every night to hear their conversations and to find out where my sword manual was. Yue Lingshan asked, every night you hid yourself on top of the precipice? That's right. Yue Lingshan again repeated her question. Every night? Ying Ying couldn't hear Lin Pingzhi's answer. She thought he must have nodded his head, but she heard Yue Lingshan sigh and said, you have a strong will. For vengeance, I had to succeed. Yes, Yue Lingshan meekly agreed. Lin Pingzhi narrated, I listened in for more than 10 nights, but I didn't hear anything unusual. But one night I heard your mother say, Marshall brother, I feel there's something amiss with your appearance recently. Did you have some kind of trouble learning that divine art of violet twilight? Don't seek perfection too much and invite trouble. Oh, should I use their voices instead? Too many voices, guys. Your dad laughed and replied, No, my martial art practice is going smoothly. Your mother said, Don't hide it from me. How come your voice has changed recently? The pitch of your voice has become higher and sharper, just like a girl. Your dad said, Nonsense, my voice has always been like this. Oh wait, it's higher? Nonsense, my voice has always been like this. When I heard him say these words, I heard his voice was really sharp, just like a girl throwing a tantrum. Your mother said, You're still denying it? In your whole life, you've never said those words to me. In the years we've been together, when have you concealed anything from me when something's troubling you? Your dad said, What's there to trouble me? The meeting at Songshan isn't too far away, and Zhuo Langchan's intention to annex the 4 schools is very obvious. I'm troubled by this. That's some of it. Your mother said, I see that it's more than this. Your dad got angry again, and in his sharp voice said, It's your blind suspicion. What else is there besides this? Your mother answered, When I say it out, don't get angry. I know you've wrongly blamed Chong-er. Your dad said, Chong-er, he and his devil sect people meddle together. He also has a relationship with this devil sect Miss Run. Everyone in the world knows about this already. How did I wrongly blame him? I'm getting all the voices mixed up. So I think the master had been hiding his sharp voice this entire time. When Ying heard him narrating Yue Buchun's words, mentioned her own name, furthermore, mentioning he also has a relationship with this devil sect Miss Run. Everyone in the world knows about this already. Her whole face slightly heated up, but a soft and tender feeling rose up from her heart. She then heard Lin Pingzhi continue. I'm burping. She then heard Lin Pingzhi continue. Your mother said, You didn't wrongly blame him for making friends with people from the devil sect. I'm saying you wrongly blame him for stealing Ping-er's evil resisting sword manual. Your dad said, Could it be he didn't steal the sword manual? His swordplay suddenly advanced tremendously. He's even higher skilled than you or me. Haven't you seen that already? Your mother said, He must have met with someone else. Well, he must have met with something else for that. I'm certain he didn't take the evil resisting sword manual. It's true that Chong-er likes to make trouble, and he doesn't listen to our teachings, but ever since he was little, he's always been frank, and he'd never steal anything. After Shan-er became fond of Ping-er, and he was jilted, he's still such a proud person. Even if Ping-er gave him the sword manual willingly, he still wouldn't accept it. Ying heard till here, and she felt an unspeakable happiness in her heart. She was hoping she could give Madame Yue a hug right then, and express her gratitude. Ying was thinking it wasn't in vain that you've raised Chong Lang since he was little. From everyone in Huashan, you are the only person who understands him. She also thought, based on Madame Yue's words, if Ling Huchong had a chance someday, then he must repay her well what she had just said. Lin Pingzhi went on. Your dad snorted and said, It looks like you regret expelling this little kid, Ling Huchong, from our school. Your mother said, He violated the school's rules, and you carried out your ancestors' instructions and upheld the school's principle, so no one can criticize you for this, but your accusation of him turning over to the unorthodox path is already enough. Why did you have to wrongly blame him for stealing the sword manual too? Actually, you know this much better than me. How? You know he didn't take Ping Er's evil resisting sword manual. Your dad shouted, How would I know? How would I know? Lin Pingzhi's voice had also become high and acute, imitating Yue Buchun's sharp voice in shouting angrily. In the still and calm night, a sharp cry of an owl was heard, frightening Ying Ying. After a pause, Lin Pingzhi continued, Your mother slowly said, Of course you know, because you're the one who took his sword manual. Your dad angrily roared, You're saying I... But after saying these few words, he stopped. Your mother's voice was completely tranquil as she said, That day when Chang'er was injured and unconscious, I stemmed his bleeding. At that time, I saw a Buddhist robe on him, on which many small words were written, looking like some type of sword art. Oh, she already knew. The master wife already knew. The second time I replaced his medication, that Buddhist robe had disappeared. At that time, Chang'er was still unconscious. Within that time, there was no one else who had entered the room besides the two of us, and I didn't take that Buddhist robe. Yue Lingshan choked and whimpered, My dad. Lin Pingzhi said, Your dad had already tried to interrupt a few times already. But after saying one or two words, he didn't say anything more. Your mother's voice gradually got softer, and she said, Martial brother, our Huashan school's swordplay is made by our own school, and the divine art of Violet Twilight is an outstanding qigong to fight against other people. Our martial arts reputation have also been well spread in Jianghu, so there's no need to learn another school's swordplay. But recently, Zhuo Langchan's wild ambition has become even more fervent, and he wants to annex the 4 schools. The Huashan school is in your hand. Whatever happens, it won't be annexed by Zhuo Langchan's hand. Let's contact Taishan, Hangshan, and Hangshan schools. When the time arrives, the 4 schools will fight against his, and I think we'll have a 60% chance of winning. If we didn't win, then we would go out fighting and give our lives at Songshan. When we arrive at the 9 fountains, we won't have to be ashamed in front of the Huashan school's ancestors. Ying Ying heard till here, and she secretly praised, This Madame Yue really is an upper-class heroine. She's much stronger in spirit compared to her husband. Then she heard Yue Lingshan say, My mother's words are very reasonable. Lin Pingzhi coldly laughed and said, But at that time your father had already taken my sword manual and had already started practicing it. Why would he be willing to listen to Master Wife's advice? He suddenly called her Master Wife, showing his true heart that he still had not lost the respect he had for Madame Yue. Then he continued, Then your father said, What you said is from the point of view of a woman boasting the braveness of her husband. After we've given our lives, Huashan School will be swallowed by Zhuo Langchan, and after we're dead, it's not necessary that we'll still have enough face to see the ancestors of Huashan School. Your mother didn't reply for a long time. She then sighed and said, If you're really anxious about this and wants to protect our school, then I won't blame you. But practicing this evil-resisting sword manual will only bring harm. Otherwise, why did the descendants of the Lin family not learn this sword art and were forced by other people till they had no way out? I advise you to stop practicing it before harm comes to you. Your father shouted, How did you know I was learning the evil-resisting sword art? Are you spying on me? Your mother replied, Why do I need to spy when I already know? Your father shouted, Say it, say it! He was hissing at the top of his voice. Even though his shout was really loud, he seemed to be rather discouraged. Your mother said, Everyone already noticed that your voice has completely changed. Couldn't you feel it yourself? Your dad was still denying it. My voice has always been like this. Your mother said, every morning lots of your beard fall off inside the quilt. Wait, so because you castrate, your beard falls off? Is that true? Because you don't have enough testosterone? I'm not sure that's true. Unless he injected himself with estrogen. I don't know. Your father sharply shouted, You saw it? His voice sounded terrified. Your mother sighed and said, I've seen it some time ago, but I've never said anything. You can fool other people with your glued-on beard, but how can you conceal it from your own wife, who has shared your pillow for dozens of years already? Your father didn't deny it anymore, seeing that everything was exposed. After a long time, he asked, Who else knows of this? Your mother answered, No one. Your father asked, Sean-er? Your mother said, It's unlikely that she knows. Then Ping-er naturally doesn't know then. He doesn't know. He doesn't know. All right, I'll listen to your advice. This Buddhist robe, tomorrow, we'll think of a way to return it to Ping-zhi, and we'll slowly think of a way to clear Ling Hu Chang's name. I won't study this sword art anymore, starting from today. Your mother was jubilant, and she said, That's for the best, but this sword art harms people, so how can we let Ping-er take a look at it? It's best to just destroy it. Yue Lingshan said, Of course father didn't agree. If he agreed to destroy this sword manual, then things wouldn't have come to this. You guessed wrong. Your father said, Very good, I'll destroy the sword manual immediately. I was extremely startled and wanted to say something to stop him. The sword manual belongs to my Lin family. Whether it harms people or not, he had no authority to destroy it. At this time, I heard the window creak open, and I hastily pulled my head in. Then I saw a red item, which was that Buddhist robe, floating down, and the window was closed again. In a moment, that Buddhist robe floated beside me, and I tried to grab it, but it was outside my reach. At that time, I knew that whether I could avenge my parents or not, depended on whether I could grab that Buddhist robe or not. So I disregarded my life, and with my right hand, I held on to the precipice, and I kicked out with my left foot. I felt the tip of my foot snagging the Buddhist robe, and I quickly pulled it in. It was very lucky that I hooked onto that Buddhist robe, and it didn't disappear into that bottomless heavenly gorge. So chat says, simply a lack of testosterone in a fully grown man shouldn't cause such immediate changes. What about changes over time? Because it's probably been like more than a year or something, or more. I don't know. For Yue Wuchun. So eunuchs do not develop hair as mature men and women do? Huh. Interesting. Ying Ying was captivated listening to his narration. She thought, the really lucky thing would be if you didn't manage to hook that Buddhist robe in. The really lucky thing would have been if you didn't manage to hook that Buddhist robe in. Yue Lingshan said, Mother knew father had tossed that sword manual into the heavenly gorge. Actually, father was already familiar with that sword art, and the Buddhist robe was of no use to him anymore. But because of this, you managed to learn this sword art, isn't that right? That's right. That's really heaven's will. The gods have arranged everything, and they want you to avenge father-in-law and mother-in-law. That's very good. But there's one matter. In the last few days, I've been racking my brains, but I still don't understand. How come Zhuo Langchan also knows how to use the evil-resisting sword art? Yue Lingshan groaned, and her voice was indifferent. It was obvious she didn't care if Zhuo Langchan knew how to use the evil-resisting sword art or not. Lin Pingzhi said, You didn't learn this sword art. so you don't know its obscurity and cleverness. When Zhuo Langchan and your father fought on top of that place of worship, at the end of the fight, the two of them were using evil resisting sword art. Oh, so both of them were using the sword art, which is weird. But Zhuo Langchan's sword art was completely false. Each of his moves was deliberately trying to lose to your father. His swordplay foundation is already very high. Every time he was in a difficult situation, he quickly changed his move to avoid it. But at the end, he was finally blinded by your father. If he used Songshan's sword art and he was defeated by your father, then there's nothing strange about that. Evil resisting sword art is matchless under heaven, and the Songshan sword art is a worthy opponent. Zhuo Langchan didn't castrate himself, so he didn't complete his practice of the sword art. This is also not strange. What I don't understand is, where did Zhuo Langchan learn his sword art from? Why was the one he learned was pleasing to the eye but false? The hell? His last few words were said hesitatingly, revealing that he was still thinking deeply about this. Ying Ying thought, there's nothing to be heard anymore. Zhuo Langchan's evil resisting sword art is most likely stolen from my sect. He only learned a few moves, but he didn't understand this shameless method. Dongfang Bubai's sword art is much more formidable than Yue Bu Chun's. If you had seen it, then even if you have 3 heads working together, you still wouldn't have worked it out. She was just about to quietly step back when she suddenly heard the sound of horses' hooves, coming from far away. There were more than 20 horses galloping quickly through the main road, coming towards them. And we're done. Yay! Alright, did you guys like that chapter? It's a pretty big chapter, okay? It's a lot of important revelations here. Yeah, so we find out that, yep, Yue Buchun had stolen the robe, the Buddhist monk's robe, and secretly learned the sword art himself. He had to castrate himself, okay? And his wife knew about it, and I guess they had arguments over it. And Yue Buchun was just wrongly blaming Ling Hu Chong for stealing the Buddhist robes. Also, apparently, Zhuo Langchan also kind of knows the evil resisting sword art, which we don't know why. How did he get his hands up on it? Yeah. Yeah, so the secret of this sword art is that you have to castrate yourself before learning it, okay? Dun dun dun. Yep. It was 2 chapters. I think this part 3 of the chapter was not that long, so that's why we finished pretty quickly. All right. I hope you guys like that. Yeah, the next few chapters are gonna be pretty important. We don't have many left, so a lot of big things are gonna happen. All right, let's take a swig, and then we'll end. All right. All right. Cheers. All right, guys. We're done, right? We're done. I love you. I'll see you next time. Bye.